My name is Amari Dirikesi here in Second Life. I'm a member of the Interfaith Prayer Network and a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Congregation in Second Life. And I bring here to you with me from my real life some experiences as an interfaith minister and who has spoken in front of some groups, including the United Nations General Assembly and the National Council of Churches, and I'm a student of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So I bring these things with me here to Second Life to share with you all some delicious delights about unity and diversity among people from all over the world, just like we here, we're from all over the world on this very special day, World Religion Day. Now, the Baha'i Faith began or originated the concept of World Religion Day back in 1949 in order to, as they say, foster the establishment of interfaith understanding and harmony by emphasizing the common denominator underlying all religions. Well, that's what founded the concept of World Religion Day that we celebrate here. And this is our third year in Second Life celebrating World Religion Day. The first was in 2013 when we focused on religion as a source of social change. Then last year, 2014, it was a focus on the earth as a living body. And today we have a panel of speakers from various religious paths who will come to us today to talk about the multi-faith reflections on prayer. So I want to thank, before we start, all of our panelists, of course, and especially the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Second Life, and the librarian of world religions, our Belavan Zuta, who not only gave us the lending of this space, but actually created this space here with a team for us to use. And I guess I should be printing all this in text too, huh? I'll do that. Also, of course, Peter Newton, who is here at this event and who will be speaking to us a little bit, what I've been saying. We have now several members of the spiritual community, the community panel today, from their perspectives of faith on the topic of prayer. And while they may be different, they all bring similar themes and concepts. So things that we can all understand no matter what faith we are. I'm going to introduce them one by one. Then after they have all spoken, they will all each be called again to offer a prayer in the light of their own faith to share with us all. And then we'll move forward from there. And we will be inviting our guests and audience to share any sort of prayer or comments that they have. And then at the end, we'll have a question-answer session. So I'm going to ask you, if you have questions for any of the panelists specifically, if you would hold them aside until the end. And if you're afraid you won't remember, you can IM me, and I'll cut and paste it on my notes to remember at the end, okay? Or one of us panelists, you want to IM us, and we'll try to remember your questions to the end. So, in open love and faith, I'm going to offer you a moment to reflect so that we can center into the energy that brought us here today. And I'm going to bring you some words by Barbara Walker. Barbara tells us Thousands of years of history have passed, and during that time, human beings have fought and killed and plundered and wronged each other in every possible way, and of such stuff is what history is made. But also during that time, other human beings have quietly and patiently persevered in the development of the arts, of inventions, crafts, ideas, and programs. And from these millions of creative persons, most of them unnoticed and unknown, in the upheavals of history have come good and lasting things in the sum of human culture. That's from Barbara. And I'm going to say together today, if we could just take a breath and realize that we here today come in unity and diversity to share, which is also a wonderful thing. So first, to honor our Unitarian Universalist location, I'm going to ask T. Oster to come and speak to us from the Unitarian perspective.
Thank you to Belle, Amari, and Peter for inviting me to today's conference. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles. We share a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality drawn from many sources. We are multi-faith, and I am honored to be addressing you all here today for World Religion Day. The 7 principles and 6 sources of the Unitarian Universalist Association grew out of the grassroots of our communities, were affirmed democratically, and a part of who we are. Our principles. Unitarian Universalists hold the principles as strong values and moral teachings. As Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhoff explains, the principles are not dogma or doctrine, but rather a guide for those of us who choose to join and participate in Unitarian Universalist religious communities. Here are the 7 principles. First principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Second principle, justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. Third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Fourth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and the society at large. The 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Next we have the sources of our living tradition. As Reverend Kathleen Rosenless said, throughout history we have moved to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature herself. Worshipping in our congregations, you may hear a reading or perspective shared from any one of these sources and other sources from which our living tradition is drawn. Direct experience, and here these are the traditions, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenges us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and transforming the power of love, or as we say, standing on the side of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspire in us our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And finally, the earth-centered spiritual teaching of the earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And here's the question: do you use pray? Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion, and some of us may not even call it a religion, as we might consider ourselves as spiritual but not religious. Others may consider themselves agnostic, atheist, pagan, Buddhist, Christian, Baha'i, earth-based, Native American, Islamic, Hindu, or any other traditions or way of thinking. Some may pray, some may meditate, some may reflect, some may chant, some may experience stillness, some may sing, some may sing, some may discuss, and some may simply howl at the moon. Our expressions of prayers are as varied as our traditions. Every Thursday night we gather as the First Unitarian Universalist congregation of Second Life here, and this is our home sim where you're sitting now, at 6:30 p.m. Second Life. And this has happened continuously for about 8 years. All are welcome to experience the diversity of ideas and styles of interaction that we offer. And you may also look at UUA.org or consider joining the group Unitarian Universals of Second Life to receive regular announcements. IM me if you would like to join our group. And thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you here at UUtopia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, T. From the Unitarian Universalist perspective. You're wonderful. I'm going to ask our friend Kralus, who has spoken before us before and given wonderful wise words, to come and give us some Hindu perspective. Kralus.
Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. And thank you, T. That was wonderful. So thank you, Peter, Amari, and Bellevin for hosting this fantastic event. And thank you to all the presenters for taking the time to share with us. And a special thank you to our guests for attending and showing your support and interest. I'm speaking on behalf of Hinduism, though I was not raised a Hindu. I found Hinduism through my practice of yoga, which emerged from the Vedas, to some of the original and primary texts of Hinduism. It's hard to say whether I'm a practicing Hindu, as Hinduism is so broadly defined, with the intent that it is accessible to all who want it in their lives. I figure myself more of an eclectic practitioner of various Indian lineages, but have spent many years learning about Hinduism and implementing some of its practices in my daily life. Much of what I will describe today is from a long lineage of thought based out of India and comes from a people who we call Hindus. There are many different paths one can take in Hinduism, and the one that most applies to our topic of prayer today is the Bhakti path, or the path of devotion. It is through this path that people worship the divine in all living things. It is in this path which temples and sites of worship emerged. It is important, in order to understand prayer in this tradition, to first understand their view on deities. Hinduism is a pantheon of deities which represent different characteristics of reality, some of which are things we may want to embody in ourselves or bring into our lives. It is, for this reason that we call upon the deities through prayer to make it known that we are looking to employ certain things in our lives. An old idea in Hindu thought is that of bijas, or seed syllables. This is where the sound Om comes from. Om, pronounced A-U-M, Om, is the eternal sound of creation. It exists in all things, and in fact created the state necessary for all things to exist. In the more esoteric schools of Hinduism, we find that this is why we pray. By creating vibrations which match the things we are praying for, we can create the state in ourselves and around us for those things to arise, therefore enriching both our personal and our collective lives. The oldest prayers come from the Vedas, a compilation of holy teachings or texts which are thought to have emerged around 1500 to 1000 BC. There were 4 primary texts: the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Tharva Veda. It is within these books that the ideas which birthed Hinduism emerged. They contain various ritualistic practices and knowledge, including prayers. In the Bhakti tradition, we find statues and images of the deities that people pray to. That's cute. This is to use a visual symbol of what the divine represents, and many of the statues and images will have specific symbols representing certain things. For instance, Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, creativity, and learning, is often seen with the Vedas, representing the knowledge of the ages and thought to be taught by her. A swan, representing purity and discrimination, a vila, representing sound and music, and a rosary or mala, representing mantra. By chanting a Saraswati mantra, you are invoking her protection and guidance as you take on a task of knowledge or creativity. This is true for each mantra specific to the deities. Hindu prayers are called mantras, and they are typically chanted, though have also been turned into songs in the past few decades, which are some very nice songs too. Typically, they are taught with call and response, and are chanted in Sanskrit, an ancient language that arose in or near the Indus Valley. Different traditions may chant them slightly differently, though all will claim that their way is the most true. The Sanskrit can be difficult, especially for those of us who are Westerners, as it uses much more of the mouth and throat than English. A mantra is typically a compilation of various bijas or seed syllables, and has a particular intonation to how it is supposed to be chanted. It is a form of prayer if you choose to see it as such, but can also just be a reminder of what is dear to you. Traditionally, people would study a particular mantra or a set of mantras for many years for the qualities to take effect, but we don't have many years to practice today. So after the speech and all the panelists talk, I'll share with you just one. And for now, that is all. So thank you for being such a wonderful audience, and I'll now take my seat and let the next presenter step up. Namaste. Let's see the truth in each of you. Thank you.
Namaste, Krelus. Thank you so much. Your words are always so wise. Thank you. So next, we shift to our Christian panelist, Mr. Jerome Newstart. Thank you, Jerome.
Describing the Christian tradition, when I thought about doing that, reminded me of the old story of a multitude of blind persons in an attempt to describe an elephant. As you have probably concluded if you have looked at any kind of work with the Christian tradition, we are passionately in at least minor disagreement with each other most of the time. Now, some of us regard that as a relatively healthy kind of thing, and it certainly did give rise to the denominationalism that we see in Christianity. And so deciding that overall defining a Christian position in this country or any other was probably an exercise in futility that would take at least 5 hours, I confined myself to thinking a bit about the theme for this gathering, and I'm incredibly grateful to the folks who organized it. This is wonderful. Alas, that we do it only once a year, but we all lead busy lives, don't we? What I've done is confine myself to notions of prayer. The origins of Christian prayer go back a very, very, very long time, to the dawn of what we think of as the tribal period that became Judaism. And that is circa 2,500 to perhaps as long as 3,000 years before the modern Christian era, so a long time ago. And the nature of the very early religious observances and prayer models is lost to us. But we think of prayer even today as opening ourselves. And in that opening, we are seeking a relationship with a divine presence. A kind of, as one prominent theologian who I know well has described it, as a way of engaging in a dance with the divine. She's also described the divine as kind of like water slowly flowing down a hill. It reaches everything ultimately. So we conceive, we Christians, of the divine as absolutely omnipresent, everywhere, at all times. And our prayer life is seeking that divine presence really in the world. Now, many of us consider meditating on the Psalms actually as a kind of prayer, because we realize that they were written as liturgical pieces, at least the vast majority of them, and were chanted in the very earliest days of the tribal societies that became the Jewish tradition. A tradition, of course, which is responsible for much of the basic beliefs of Christianity, the other major pillar undergirding Christianity being Greco-Roman philosophy. So it's a combination of lots of different kinds of things. But in essence, what we seek to do is to engage God, to share the things that give us joy, the things that cause us great concern, to give them over into God's keeping, trusting that part of the nature of the divine is to want the best that is possible for the entire creation. And that God's aim is to work always in that direction. So, when we give over our petitions, the things that we want God to be aware of, so to speak, we are adding to everything that God knows, because those petitions, known then to God because they are known to us virtually instantly, because they are known to God, they change everything that God knows. God's understanding of the universe is enhanced by each individual prayer expression. And God, who sees and understands the totality of everything in every moment, responds to that prayer always, we believe, with the best that may yet be. God uses the totality of the divine experience to shape an answer to each prayer, always moving toward the best that may yet be. Or put another way, God experiences the creation as it actually is, good, bad, or indifferent, in every moment. And our prayers are added to that totality of the divine experience. And God then responds based on the sum of God's experience and God's understanding of the best that may yet be. So in that respect, our prayer is a surrender of self to the knowledge and the capabilities of God. And since God is omnipresent in the creation, the impact of each prayer added to God's cumulative experiences, changes everything from that moment on. Nothing is ever the same because the experience of the divine in the creation is changed by the very fact that we prayed. So prayer is incredibly powerful, even when we cannot understand the total context of God's experience that shapes each response. We give it to God, and God handles it from that point. I think perhaps the most well-known example is, of course, the prayer that is so to the Christian tradition, and that is the Lord's Prayer. Well, I took a somewhat more limited approach, and I hope that that was satisfactory. We are an actual church affiliated with the United Church of Christ, an official ministry of the Southern California Conference of the UTC. We offer several worship services and several Psalter meditation services each week. My colleague, Pastor Josh, is here as well. One of us can give you information about our basic beliefs, at least in this denomination, dare I say, our part of the and can answer questions about worship opportunities as well. May the divine presence, however named, be with each of you. Good to be here.
I hate to even speak after him. That voice was just intoxicating. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. Wonderful, wonderful experience. So now we have with us our Buddhist panel representative who has spoken with us before, and I call him the Venerable Wayne, and I invite him now to come and speak before us. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Greetings, everybody. First, I am so happy to be invited again this year to speak. It's always great to speak to such a pluralistic and open-hearted and open-minded group. It's always very interesting to hear other faiths, other practices, view on so many of these subjects that get tackled here. Again, my name is Wayne. My Dharma name is Relgion, and I'm a teacher at the Buddhist Center here in Second Life. Today we're talking about prayer, which is an interesting subject, especially for my particular Buddhist tradition. In many Buddhist traditions, there are mantras and dharanis and chants that are practiced and are what others might view rightly as prayer. Whatever the modality, they are offered as rituals of intent in my tradition, in the Dharma tradition, which has its foundations in Chinese Chan and Japanese Soto Zen traditions. They are spoken to remind each practitioner of the responsibilities we have both to ourselves and, of course, to others. There is no beseeching a higher power to intercede in what we want to do or what we're seeking to do. There is no expectation of outside assistance of any sort of deific intervention, if you will. Instead, each of these rituals of intent has behind it the intent to be always mindful of the spiritual and secular goals of our practice, and to take the actions needed to make them a reality. So it boils down to reminding ourselves of our personal responsibilities and our thoughts and actions. So in thinking about what was I going to use tonight, this afternoon, depending on where you are, and what I did is I chose a particular ritual of intent that we use at the end of any session of the Sangha or of an individual practice. So if I sit and meditate in the morning or the evening, I also speak these words after individual sessions. This is spoken always both with a smile, which I think all prayers and all traditions are usually spoken with, a smile, and with loving kindness. And we call this sharing the merit. And here's how it goes. Showing our gratitude and generosity, practicing the way of awareness which gives rise to benefits without limit, we vow to share these benefits of our practice, service, and gifts with all beings. Let us be reminded that a life of engagement and compassion is supremely important. Time swiftly passes by, and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to become aware of our connectedness to others and not squander the gift of realizing the wisdom of engaging the Dharma. Swaha. Little note about Swaha, and I think this really connects our tradition, especially with the Western Christian tradition. Swaha is nothing but the Buddhist way of saying Amen. It simply means let it be so. And again, it's a ritual of intent. It's a reminder of what we need to go forward and do. With these types of rituals, we remind ourselves of the intent of the spiritual and secular goals of an engaged Buddhist practice. We must be grateful for what we have, and we must be generous with the same. We must practice awareness, which allows us to be better able to recognize the needs of others, so that the benefits we enjoy will be used for their benefit. Compassion. Compassion is supremely important because it is non-negotiable as we engage life and as we engage the thoughts and actions of a bodhisattva in training. The time we have from birth to death is short. And so we must remain aware of all opportunities to engage life. We must maintain awareness of interdependence and interconnection and use the knowledge gained from studying and practicing the Dharma whenever and wherever we engage the world around us. There is no deity being asked to intercede here. Instead, the words are meant for the person who speaks them and for those who hear them. Words meant to strengthen intent so that appropriate thought and action can be engaged, so that a goal or an ideal can be reached. But I want to make something clear from a pluralistic point of view. Pluralism being the idea that I have my commitments, others have theirs, and these commitments are important to all of us. When I talk about prayer this way, this does not mean that I, as a Buddhist, don't accept the value of prayer in religious and spiritual practices. These practices have served to guide many others on the path of compassion, nonviolence, and faith, and must be honored by any and all who seek the same. So, we all have different paths with prayer. We all have different ideas of it. But in the end, no matter what the faith, no matter what the spiritual path, even secular paths, these words are meant for us to go forward and do good, be good, or as we say in our 3 pure precepts, cease to do harm, do only good, and do good for others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wayne, for those words of mindful compassion and balance. I love it. Thank you so much. Next, we have a panelist from faith of Islam, and this will be Abdul Qados. He will be speaking to us in text, and Peter will be reading his text in voice.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you, brothers and sisters. I'm happy to see such a diverse group centered on one point, the all-important matter of prayer. Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanksgiving be to God. I stand before you today not as a Muslim per se, but as a student of Islam among other religions, and as a believer that knowledge is a single point, but the ignorant have multiplied it. Interfaith harmony is a principle established by Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, when he said, "We believe in God and what has been revealed to us." And what was revealed by Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes, and in what was given to Moses, Jesus, and the prophets from their Lord. We make no distinction between any of them, and to God do we submit. Obligatory prayer, salat, is one of the pillars of Islam. You may be familiar with Muslim practices of the azan or call to prayer, performing ablutions, praying 5 times a day, and the bodily positions that accompany the salat. This follows the instruction, establish regular prayers at the 2 ends of the day and at the approaches of night for those things that are good, remove those that are evil. Islam has another form of prayer known as dua, meaning invocation or supplication, and believed to be the very essence of worship. Dua may rise spontaneously from each heart, but there are many beautiful written prayers, some given by Muhammad, peace be upon him, such as this: Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds, the compassionate, the merciful, King of the day of reckoning. Thee only do we worship, and to Thee do we call for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those to whom Thou hast been gracious, with whom Thou art contented, and who go not astray. Other dua have been composed by Muslims, often in lyrical, poetic language, such as the well-known Psalms of the household of Muhammad. For example, all praise is for God, who treats me with clemency, just as if I had no sin. So my Lord is the most praised by me of all, the most worthy of my praise. O God, I find the roads of wishing after Thee wide open, and the rivers of hoping for Thee vast and running, and Thy bounty freely accessible to those who seek after Thee. The gates of prayer are wide ajar to those who are astray. I testify that Thou art He who answerest all those who ask of Thee, and the rescuer of the distressed. This is in response to the teaching, Your Lord says, Call on me and I will answer your prayer. Call on your Lord with humility and in private. When my servants ask you concerning me, I am indeed close to them. I listen to the prayer of every suppliant when he calls on me. God knows what is in our hearts even before we verbalize it in prayer. We created man, and we know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his own life vein. However, we are counseled to pray with a pure heart. He is the living one. No God is there but He. Then call upon Him and offer Him a pure worship. Praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. The wisdom of prayer is this: there is a polish for everything that becomes rusty, and the polish for the heart is the remembrance of God. Prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds, and remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life, without doubt. As parents, we are instructed to enjoy prayer on thy family and persevere therein. We ask not of thee to find thine own provision. We will provide for thee, and a happy issue shall there be to piety. Therefore remember me, I will remember you, and give me thanks, and be not ungrateful. O ye who believe, seek help with patience and with prayer, for God is with the patient. O my son, observe prayer, and enjoin the right, and forbid the wrong, and be patient under whatever shall betide thee, for this is a bounden duty. O you who believe, eat of the good things that we have provided for you, and be grateful to God, if it is Him that you worship. In reality, all created things give praise to God. He is God, the producer, the maker, the fashioner. To Him are ascribed excellent titles. Whatever is in the heavens and in the earth praiseth Him. He is the mighty, the wise. To finish, I would like to offer a Muslim prayer for peace and religious tolerance, a collective effort of many individuals who have contributed to improve it with the passage of time, posted by the Pakistani Movement for Reforming Society. Merciful God, you made all of the people of the world in your own image, and placed before us the pathway of salvation through different teachers who have been your saints and prophets. But seeming contradictions in their teachings and diverse interpretations of them have resulted in creating divisions, hatreds, and bloodshed in the world community. Millions of innocent men, women, and children have already been brutally killed by the militants of several religions who have committed horrifying crimes against humanity. And millions more would be butchered by them in the future if you do not help us find ways to reunite peacefully. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, look with compassion on the whole family. Remove the conflictive teachings of arrogance, division, and hatred which have badly infected our hearts. Break down the walls that separate us. Reunite us in bonds of love, and work through our struggle and confusion to accomplish your purposes on earth, that in your good time all nations and races may jointly serve you in justice, peace, and harmony. Amen. Thank you all for listening, and salam. Peace.
Oh, he got me. That was great. Thank you so much, Kados. That was very beautiful. Very, very nice. You got me. Next, we need a panelist for the Native American tradition. And so I introduce you to my partner, Diamante Thomas, who will speak to us about the Native traditions.
Yes, I'm Diamante Thomas, and Amari just asked me to speak a little bit over an hour ago and represent Native peoples. And all I can say is I can't speak for all Native people, yet what I can speak as is the humble son of my mother, who was a proud Choctaw Native, and son of my father, whose family came from Ghana. So in putting some thoughts together over this last couple hours, I reflected on the native peoples who are now in the United States have over 560 recognized tribes. And what we believe is no tribe worships or prays the same. My mom would speak of our spirituality, our prayers, our chants, really truly being connected to the ways that tribes have survived physically in this world. So there's hunting tribes, there's fishing tribes, there's agricultural tribes, and more, all with their own unique and special traditions. So, for example, if your tribe was dependent on hunting, then the emphasis on your prayers, your chants, your spiritual being would be to honor animals. If your emphasis was on being an agricultural tribe, the emphasis would be on crops and the land having a sacred identity. As a Choctaw, we depended on the land for our lives. Though I find so many of the similarities really have outweighed the differences. For throughout Native American societies, through tribes, the core meaning of our spirituality has been essentially the same: the respect of Mother Earth and all that grows from her. And so many of our prayers, our chants, I learned growing up, had that as an emphasis: the land and those who dwell upon it. My mom was a big collector of sayings and quotes, and as her son, I have kept that up. And she had a saying that was posted on the wall of our house that said, "Our religion is not one of paint and feathers, it is one of the heart." She would go on to say that our heart is with people and with the earth. And I think more I learned from her was to really pay attention to that as being the most important. What I've learned is that really our chanting, our prayers, our spirituality was centered around Mother Earth. My mom would speak about Earth as our mother, the sky as our father, and that all things were interconnected. As such, that's how our prayers were directed, with an awareness of where we live and what we share with the earth. A spiritual wish I've taken from her in my work with young children has been the idea of giving children an awareness of themselves in the world today. And one of the things that we have always said in my family is one that I've passed on to the young children I work with, and that is, may you walk in beauty. I want young children to respect all of life, each other, our world, and all that dwells here. As a last few thoughts, I was raised believing that and taught to pray around the idea that we as humans have a special but not superior place in this world, that we are from the web of life, and to be reverent to all of life, and in this world we as humans play a role, yet to be aware of our own limitations and to honor and revere all of life on this earth. And my prayers, my chants, pay attention to my place in this web of life. So thank you for letting me speak, and I wish you well, and may you all walk in beauty.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. And thank you for stepping up last minute like that for us, for all of us, and sharing that wisdom and your wonderful speaking style. Thank you. Next, we have a panelist from a path that is the Course in Miracles, and that would be Ewan Bonham. I look forward to his words. Come speak to us, Ewan.
Hello and good evening. It's really an honor to be here and to address all of you, and certainly my esteemed panel and UU for having organized this event. It's a tremendous gathering. And first, before I begin, let's all take 3 very deep breaths and just enjoy the fact that our feet are on the ground, that we can feel the energy, even, if you will, through the keyboard. But it shows the power of all people when we are joined together in thoughts and in our hearts, and when we are truly, truly together. And today, I would like to say that I'm glad that I'm speaking after so many others, because I was musing that I hear absolutely not any contradiction at all. It seems to me, perhaps to you, that all of the messages that you have heard so far, and I assure you many countless others that are spoken every day, would point in the same direction. Those directions, from an interfaith perspective, distill very nicely into the power of love, the power of forgiveness, the power of peace, and the power of oneness or connection throughout the world. And today, I would like to paraphrase an article that was written by my dear friend, de la Jamis, from A Course in Miracles in California. You know, most of us have been raised to believe that prayer involves kind of an asking or a pleading to God for help, as if we are separate from God, and we need God to rescue us, to fix problems, to bring us things in this world that we can't do for ourselves. That is not the purpose of prayer. Prayer in A Course in Miracles is quite different, and really quite beautiful. It is referred to in A Course in Miracles as a song. If you can think of a joyous song, you can think of an exchange of voices, harmonics, a beat which is eternal. That is what prayer is in A Course in Miracles, and for each one of us. It is a joyous exchange of love and gratitude and thanks between God and God's creations. That's all of us. It employs forgiveness as a process to correct not others, but our minds. And this is done through, in a sense, a mindful chanting. It really is a ticket home for us to relieve ourselves of all sources of angst, irritation, upset, tightness, stress, by retraining our minds to see only love and the goodness in all persons. Prayer is an exchange, a song of love. And it kind of overpowers, if you will, gently caresses us away from ego-based isolation, pairing of what we see in earthly forms as one person versus another. But A Course in Miracles says that we have all, and are still, in a spiritual sense, united and together, not split, but together. And therefore, both the cause and the effect of whatever we feel, whatever we think, is in our minds. The ego's judgments and thought system have separated us, but we need not listen to the ego. True prayer requires a correction of the mind, because God really has nothing to do with the way people appear, the form that they take. Thus the song of prayer that we can join in on as a chorus at any time is defined by A Course in Miracles as a song of recreation. We continuously create the song of love. We do this by listening only for the particular tones of love. seeing only the goodness of people, centering in on what we know is the smile on their face, the twinkle in their eye, seeing only that part of them and looking beyond at anything else that we may be tempted to see. God gave us this gift of love so that its single voice can be shared together by Creator and created. Continuously sharing love and creation back and forth extends them forever in eternity. That is what prayer is. And within this form of the world as we live it, to rediscover prayer is a gift that God is always offering us. This offer comes from the many miracle moments during the day when we can see the blessings that are all around us. That is the memory of God in our mind. And it's how we reach God in spite of this supposed world that we're walking on. Anybody who ever remembered even the tiniest instant, known as the holy instant, of all-inclusive joy, must begin to hold on to that and let it expand. At that moment, choose prayer, and our minds will change as well. True prayer is asking to receive what we already have. Yes, that's right. We're perfect unto ourselves. The song of prayer is one that we know. We can do this easily by focusing our minds on a loving spirit, a loving moment, something that we know for sure felt a union with God. And this song begins with forgiveness, which is a correction of the mind. We have many, many opportunities to forgive during the day. And forgiveness is not bestowing something on somebody else. Forgiveness is allowing ourselves to put aside any thoughts of judgment, any misgivings, and simply reach for what is our common thread, what is our common bond. The moment that we can center our thoughts on that, no matter who we are speaking to, no matter what the topic is, we have created for ourselves a miracle. A miracle is a thought correction in the direction of love. And so forgiveness is a part of true prayer, and it's a very quick one. Prayer is timeless and goes on forever. And forgiveness is the ladder which we climb to receive that correction. Now, once the mind no longer judges, then forgiveness is no longer necessary because we will be in heaven. And there are many that would say we already are in heaven, but we simply don't know it. And so the big secret to prayer, forgiveness, and recognizing miracles is to disregard and to give up things that could be a difference between you and I, because in reality our minds are joined. And therefore our minds can be returned to truth and love. You're agreeing with God that you are one mind, and the form of this world with its tangibles and all the things that we need to manipulate it, it's just a doing world. But we are in the world of being. Therefore, the real world is the world of heaven. It is the world of loving relationships. And you can always choose for that world. Using correction of the mind places those forms that we think are of this world onto God's altar. And as so, these idols, which are nothing more than anything you have chosen to be more important than God's love disappear. We hold the ego to the light, and it dissipates in the light of love. So the more you give up the ego, the more meaningless the world becomes, and the faster you can sing the song of prayer. And that, my friends, is a little bit about A Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles is a daily discipline. It consists of 3 volumes. The first volume discusses here kind of the theory of mind correctness, much as I have just explained to you here. And there is a discipline to doing it. Every day there's a workbook. It is available and open to the public, so there is no cost for it in any way. And if any of you would be interested in joining with me in a group around A Course in Miracles, I would be very happy to help form one here in Second Life. Until then, peace be with you. Place love in your heart and from your heart to your mind and extend it out, and it will come back to you many, many fold. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ewan. Your words remind us about love and trust, and in turn, as we reflect on all of the panelists here today, we have heard many tones of love and trust and heart and faith. Very, very, very sweet time. Our last panelist, per se, is from the Baha'i faith, and I call her Jen.
Good evening, friends. I want to begin by saying we have no clergy in the Baha'i faith. We are enjoined to investigate truth for ourselves. So that's usually how I want to start it, by saying I'm no expert. I do believe in in the works and words of Baha'u'llah, but I'm not a clergy. It's wonderful to see people of so many different faith traditions sharing their insights so openly and respectfully. One thing that all religions have in common is prayer, although the specifics may vary, and the Baha'i faith is no exception. What is prayer? Abdul-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, founder of the Baha'i faith, said, "There is nothing sweeter in the world of existence than prayer. The most blessed condition is that of prayer and supplication." A young man once asked Abdul-Baha to teach him how to pray. When he arrived for the lesson, Abdul-Baha, already kneeling in prayer, said nothing, so the young man simply followed his example. After praying for his friends and family, he repeated all the prayers he had learned as a child, and then his attention drifted to the pain in his knees, his aching back, the birds singing outside the window, and a crack in the wall. Finally, his gaze shifted to Abdul-Baha, and he saw such ecstasy in his uplifted face that suddenly all he wanted was to be able to pray like that. Forgetting all else, he became only aware of one thing, a passionate desire to draw closer to God. He closed his eyes and was surprised to find his heart transported by eager, joyful, tumultuous prayer. Abdul-Baha had taught him how to pray. Abdul-Baha promptly rose and approached the young man. "When you pray," he said with a twinkle in his eyes, "do not think of your aching body, the birds outside the window, or the cracks in the wall." Then more seriously he added, When you want to pray, know first that you are in the presence of the All-Powerful. The Baha'i teachings state that prayer in its essence is communion with the divine, no matter how we understand or name that transcendent being. O Son of Glory, be swift in the path of holiness, and enter the heaven of communion with me. Cleanse thy heart with the burnish of the Spirit, and hasten to the court of the Most High. Why should we pray? The Baha'i writings say, if one friend feels love for another, he will wish to say so. Though he knows that the friend is aware of that he loves him, he will still wish to say so. God knows the wishes of all hearts, but the impulse to prayer is a natural one, springing from our love to God. Abdul-Baha says, the wisdom of prayer is this, that it causes a connection between the servant and the true one. Because in that state, with all our heart and soul, we turn our face towards His Highness, the Almighty, seeking His association and desiring His love and compassion. The greatest happiness for a lover is to converse with his beloved, and the greatest gift for a seeker is to become familiar with the object of his longing. That is why the greatest hope of every soul attracted to the kingdom of God is to find an opportunity to entreat and supplicate before his beloved, appeal for his mercy and grace, and be immersed in the ocean of his utterance, goodness, and generosity. We should speak in the language of heaven, in the language of the Spirit, which is as different from our language as ours is different from that of the cries and sounds of animals. It is the language of the Spirit which speaks to God. When, in prayer, we are freed from all outward things and turn to God, then it is as if in our hearts we hear the voice of God. Without words we speak, we communicate, we converse with God, and hear the answer. All of us, when we attain to a truly spiritual condition, can hear the voice of God. And that was a quote from Abdul-Baha. Man becomes like a stone unless he continually supplicates to God. The heart of man is like a mirror which is covered in dust. And to cleanse it, one must continually pray to God that it become clean. The act of supplication is the polish which erases all worldly desires. How should we pray? The Baha'i writings say, prayer need not be in words, but rather in thought and attitude. But if this love and this desire are lacking, it is useless to try to force them. Words without love mean nothing. If a person talks to you as an unpleasant duty, with no love or pleasure in his meeting with you, do you wish to converse with him? The most acceptable prayer is the one offered with the utmost spirituality and radiance. Its prolongation hath not been and is not beloved by God. The more detached and the purer the prayer, the more acceptable it is in the presence of God. Baha'i prayers say, make of my prayer a fire that will burn away the veils which have shut me out from thy beauty, and a light that will lead me unto the ocean of thy presence. That the holy ecstasy of prayer may fill our souls, a prayer that shall rise above words and letters and transcend the murmur of syllables and sounds, that all things may be merged into nothingness before the revelation of thy splendor. In the Baha'i writings, work done in a spirit of service is also a form of prayer. All effort and exertion put forth by man from the fullness of his heart is worship, if it is prompted by the highest motives and the will to do service to humanity. This is worship, to serve mankind and to minister to the needs of the people. Service is prayer. Strive that your actions, day by day, might be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. enrich the poor, raise the fallen, comfort the sorrowful, bring healing to the sick, reassure the fearful, rescue the oppressed, bring hope to the hopeless, shelter to the destitute. What should we pray for? The Baha'i writings say, O thou who art turning thy face toward God, close thine eyes to all things else, and open them to the realm of the All-Glorious. Ask whatsoever thou wishest of him alone. Seek whatsoever thou seekest from him alone. With a look he granteth 100,000 hopes. With a glance he healeth 100,000 incurable ills. And with a glimpse he layeth balm on every wound. With a nod he freeth the hearts from the shackles of grief. Then better for thee to bow down thy head in submission, and put thy trust in the all-merciful Lord. Beseech from God's infinite grace whatsoever thou desirest. But wert thou to heed my advice, thou wouldst desire not save entrance into the most glorious kingdom, and seek not save the bounties of the beauty of the all-glorious. May my life be sacrificed for his loved ones. This is my exhortation to thee. Baha'u'llah prayed, O God, my God, look not upon my hopes and my doings, nay, rather look upon thy will that hath encompassed the heavens and the earth. By thy most great name, O thou Lord of all nations, I have desired only what thou didst desire, and love only what thou dost love. Are prayers always answered? Yes, but not always in the way we expect, and not always right away. Sometimes, in looking at our past, we see the answer that was given and how it shaped our lives. The more closely our prayer corresponds to the will of God, the more often the answer will be an immediate yes. I would like to end with a prayer by Abdu'l-Baha for unity and peace among all the peoples and nations of the earth. O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence they are all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at thy table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all. Thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all, let the religions agree, and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family, and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind. Thank you, friends.
Oh my. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you very much. Very, very wonderful indeed. And last, I would like to introduce the person who brought us all together today, the leader of the Interfaith Prayer Network, and my friend, Peter Newton. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much, dear friends, for such a fascinating, diverse array of insights on prayer. As we've seen, prayer is an essential aspect of all faith traditions, although it may take diverse forms. There's a growing realization that all prayer ultimately connects us to the same source and center of all existence, no matter how we understand or name it. As Krishna said, the altar flowers are of many hues, but all worship is one. Non-religious approaches also use a form of prayer or positive affirmations to enhance well-being, and science has shown its positive effects. When we stand in awe of the beauties of nature, our heart is actually singing a prayer of praise. When we feel compassion for the suffering of others, our spirit is praying for their relief. When we use positive affirmations, we are praying that they may become in our life. This awareness has sparked an upsurge of multi-faith prayer gatherings in homes, neighborhood centers, and temples around the world, some to address specific issues, and others open to the personal needs of the moment. Prayers can be written, read out loud, sung, chanted, spoken in the silence of each heart, or even conveyed through dance. Whatever the form, the purpose is to awaken spiritual sensitivities and to seek and transmit strength, healing, inspiration, among others. So what is the Second Life Interfaith Prayer Network? Several faith communities in Second Life host their own internal prayer events, but they're often small and limited to faith. The Internet Prayer Network was created to meet the need for more diverse interfaith prayer in Second Life. We hope that expanding a network of interfaith prayer events among multi-faith community of Second Life will increase the number and diversity of participants, thereby enriching the experience for all. These events do not necessarily follow a pre-established order of service. Rather, participants are invited to share prayers or inspirational thoughts freely and openly in a spirit of harmony, accepting and embracing our rich spiritual diversity. They can be called anywhere and anytime you wish to pray with others, or they can be regular weekly events, such as the ones at 6 o'clock p.m. Second Life time at the Sita Bhavana Ashram, Fridays at 5:30 p.m. at the Baha'i Lotus Temple, which is near this building, and Sundays at 5 p.m. at the Creations Park Living Light Sim. So how can we participate? And this is a call to action after everything that we've heard this evening. First is to attend the events, to experience interfaith prayer for yourself and invite others to accompany. Second is belong to the Internet Prayer Network, to receive notices and the tag Praise Well with Others, and get others to join. And third is contact your group or region about organizing its own interfaith prayer circle or opening an existing prayer event to other faiths. Other hosts would be glad to provide assistance with that. So I'll be sending you all an invitation to join the Interfaith Prayer Network and also a multi-faith prayer book. I hope that you will join us in working to bring more diverse interfaith prayer to both Second Life and First Life. I would like to leave you with an interfaith prayer that really speaks to me. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, superficial relationships, so that you will live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you will work for justice, equality, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that you will reach out your hand to comfort them and change their pain into joy. And may God bless you with the foolishness to think that you can make a difference in the world, so that you will do the things which others tell you cannot be done. So my sincerest thanks and appreciation to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Peter. And as the last movement in our event tonight, I'm going to ask first Diamante Thomas to see if he has a prayer to share with us in conclusion, and then all of the panelists down the line, and we'll share in prayer together.
This is a prayer that I offer tonight. I think my mother probably added to it a bit, but she always said it was from the Iroquois. And it goes like this. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams, which supply us with water. We return thanks to the moon and stars, which give us light when the sun is gone. We return thanks to the plants that sustain us and give us medicine. We return thanks to the animals that give us life and companionship. We return thanks to the sun that looks upon our earth. We return thanks to the Great Spirit, in whom all goodness is embodied, and who directs us all in things good for her children.
Creator, omnipresent, singular, one, however named, conceived, fashioned in heart and mind by we creatures. We approach you as community, recognizing however we have evolved, you are the origin. We thank you for all that you offer us, and we accept the responsibility of doing our part in engaging in a dance with the divine, in co-creating the best that may yet be. Our petitions, your boundless energy, joined forever and ever for the best that may yet be. And always we remember the blessing that you loved us first. Amen.
I would like to say by way of prayer, we can all do much on behalf of our own healing and of others. If in a situation calling for help, we think of it this way: I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent God who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because God who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever God wishes, knowing God goes there with me. I will be healed as I let God teach me to heal.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhavatu Sahadevam Bhavahai Tejasvina Valditamastu Ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Spirit of life and love, we have gathered again out of our separateness to know that we are not alone. In our fears, we are not alone. In grasping for peace, finding it in fleeting moments, and losing it again to some turmoil of the mind and heart, we are not alone. In our cynical moments, our wonderings, is that all there is? Is that the best we can do? We are not alone. In our pain, we are not alone. And so, as we dwell in you, Spirit of healing and wholeness, for this brief time, willing to be held here in an immense and eternal love, whose origins we do not know, whose reality is irresistible. It calls us on. It reaches between us to fill spaces. It consoles the grieving and calms the anxious. It gives new vision to eyes dimmed by tears and exhaustion. It opens the ear to deeper truth. It makes a place in the heart as hope. Let us rest in this peace and be held here. So be it.
I honor all living things who gave their lives, and all beings whose efforts brought this food before me. May the strength and vitality acquired by eating this meal be used for the benefit of all living beings. Swaha.
So, we have spent 2 hours together and had words, all kinds of wisdom. And I'm sure that you don't need for me to make the connections between them for you. My hope is that everyone here has made a connection to each other, to spirit, and to all of the elements that bring us together as human beings, like love and respect and trust and learning. So, next year, in January, let's come together again, and maybe before that we see each other. And we're going to take with us all of the lessons that these wise people have brought us and go forward. I'm going to just end with words from Thich Nhat Hanh. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now. Peace is all around us, in the world and in nature and within us, in our bodies and our spirits. Once we learn to touch this peace, we will be healed and transformed. It is not just a matter of faith. It is a matter of practice. So I hope for us all here that we can find moments of practice and share together more. Blessed be. Take care. Thank you all for coming. Made, but also during that time, other human beings have quietly and patiently persevered in the development of the arts, of inventions, crafts, ideas, and programs. And from these millions of creative persons, most of them unnoticed and unknown, in the upheavals of history have come good and lasting things in the sum of human culture. That's from Barbara. And I'm going to say together today, if we could just take a breath and realize that we here today come in unity and diversity to share, which is also a wonderful thing. So first, to honor our Unitarian Universalist location, I'm going to ask T. Oster to come and speak to us from the Unitarian perspective.
Thank you to Belle, Amari, and Peter for inviting me to today's conference. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles. We share a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality drawn from many sources. We are multi-faith, and I am honored to be addressing you all here today for World Religion Day. The 7 principles and 6 sources of Unitarian Universalist Association grew out of the grassroots of our communities, were affirmed democratically, and a part of who we are. Our principles. Unitarian Universalists hold the principles as strong values and moral teachings. As Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhoff explains, the principles are not dogma or doctrine, but rather a guide for those of us who choose to join and participate in Unitarian Universalist religious communities. Here are the 7 principles. First principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Second principle, justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. Third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Fourth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and the society at large. The 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Next we have the sources of our living tradition. As Reverend Kathleen Rosenless said, throughout history we have moved to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature herself. Worshipping in our congregations, you may hear a reading or perspective shared from any one of these sources and other sources from which our living tradition is drawn. Direct experience, and here these are the traditions, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenges us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and transforming the power of love, or as we say, standing on the side of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspire in us our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And finally, the earth-centered spiritual teaching of the earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And here's the question: do you use pray? Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion, and some of us,
the lending of the space, but actually created this space here with a team for us to use. And I guess I should be printing all this in text too, huh? I'll do that. Also, of course, Peter Newton, who is here at this event and who will be speaking to us a little bit, what I've been saying. We have now several members of the spiritual community, the community panel today, from their perspectives of faith on the topic of prayer. And while they may be different, they all bring similar themes and concepts. So things that we can all understand no matter what faith we are. I'm going to introduce them one by one. Then after they have all spoken, they will all each be called again to offer a prayer in the light of their own faith to share with us all and then we'll move forward from there. And we will be inviting our guests and audience to share any sort of prayer or comments that they have, and then at the end we'll have a question and answer session. So I'm going to ask you, if you have questions for any of the panelists specifically, if you would hold them aside until the end, and if you're afraid you won't remember, you can IM me and I'll cut and paste it on my notes to remember at the end, okay? Or one of us panelists, you want to IM us, and we'll try to remember your questions to the end. So, in open love and faith, I'm going to offer you a moment to reflect so that we can center into the energy that brought us here today. And I'm going to bring you some words by Barbara Walker. Barbara tells us, thousands of years of history have passed, and during that time, human beings have fought and killed and plundered and wronged each other in every possible way, and of such stuff is what history is.
May not even call it a religion, as we might consider ourselves as spiritual but not religious. Others may consider themselves agnostic, atheist, pagan, Buddhist, Christian, Baha'i, Earth-based, Native American, Islamic, Hindu, or any other traditions or way of thinking. Some may pray, some may meditate, some may reflect, some may chant, some may experience stillness, some may sing, some may discuss, and some may simply howl at the moon. Our expressions of prayers are as varied as our traditions. Every Thursday night we gather as the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Second Life here, and this is our home sim where you're sitting now, at 6:30 p.m. Second Life, and this has happened continuously for about 8 years. All are welcome to experience the diversity of ideas and styles of interaction that we offer. And you may also look at UUA.org or consider joining the group Unitarian Universals of Second Life to receive regular announcements. IM me if you would like to join our group. And thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you here at UUtopia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, T. From the Unitarian Universalist perspective. You're wonderful. I'm going to ask our friend Kralus, who has spoken before us before and given wonderful wise words, to come and give us some Hindu perspective. Kralus.
Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. And thank you, T. That was wonderful. So thank you, Peter, Amari, and Relgion for hosting this fantastic event. And thank you to all the presenters for taking the time to share with us. And a special thank you to our guests for attending and showing your support and interest. I'm speaking on behalf of Hinduism, though I was not raised a Hindu. I found
My name is Amari Dirikesi here in Second Life. I'm a member of the Interfaith Prayer Network and a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship or Congregation in Second Life. And I bring here to you with me from my real life some experiences as an interfaith minister and who has spoken in front of some groups, including the United Nations General Assembly and the National Council of Churches, and I'm a student of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So I bring these things with me here to Second Life to share with you all some delicious delights about unity and diversity among people from all over the world, just like we here, we're from all over the world on this very special day, World Religion Day. Now, the Baha'i faith began or originated the concept of World Religion Day back in 1949 in order to, as they say, foster the establishment of interfaith understanding and harmony by emphasizing the common denominator underlying all religions. Well, that's what founded the concept of World Religion Day that we celebrate here. And this is our third year in Second Life celebrating World Religion Day. The first was in 2013 when we focused on religion as a source of social change. Then last year, 2014, it was a focus on the earth as a living body. And today we have a panel of speakers from various religious paths who will come to us today to talk about the multi-faith reflections on prayer. So I want to thank, before we start, all of our panelists, of course, and especially the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Second Life, and the Librarian of World Religions, our Bella Van Zuta, who not only gave us